Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Justin Murphy-Mancini, and I have the pleasure of serving here as Director of Church Music at the First Religious Society of Newburyport. I want to welcome you virtually to our church and the organ loft here, and I hope that you've been staying cool. It's quite balmy up here, and I am realizing that the setting sun has necessitated some lights, which I will be turning on so I can see well. This evening's concert, I think, will be a very enjoyable one, and what do I want to say? I've lost my whole train of thought. I'm being told to wait. Shall I continue? Okay. We may have some small audio issues, but our wonderful audio engineer, Rob, will be correcting them as we go along. So let me start again just by saying welcome and good evening. I think before we start, there is a lot going on in the world right now that I think we need to take a moment for. And my conscience compels me to acknowledge that we have had many reports of, we've had several reports this week, as we do almost every week of every year, that yet another black man has been killed by the police. And we know undeniably that there is no reason why this should be an issue in this country. And I would just like to take one moment of silence to acknowledge the many, many people. Thank you. This evening, you will be invited to make a donation, a free will offering of whatever you are able to pay that will go to support both the work of the church here, which has experienced a significant budget shortfall and has remained committed to paying staff and to being a community leader here on the North Shore, as well as the One Chelsea Fund, which provides direct cash assistance to families and individuals in Chelsea, Massachusetts. Chelsea is the community has the highest immigrant population of any community in Massachusetts, and they continue to have one of the highest rates of infection in the entire United States. So your donation will be providing direct cash assistance to families in need who continue to face some of the most significant. And so I invite you to give Ludium in G by Nikolaus Bruns, a predecessor who wrote in the, quote, Stilus Fantasticus, or the fantastic style, and I think you will hear what it means to compose with a sense of fantasy, a kind of improvisatory style that is full of dramatic and virtuosic flourishes, as well as some really, really exciting footwork for me to do, and I hope that you enjoy this incredibly exciting and jubilant piece. Thank you. As you can tell, the camera is behind me, so I will turn around sometimes, but maybe not all the time, because it is quite a good back extension exercise, I suppose. So now we're going to travel back in time to the middle of the 16th century and the English composer Hugh Aston, who was probably a much more prolific composer than we know him for. Only a handful of works survive, but he was a well-respected and well-known composer, and this is one of his possibly 2 or 3 keyboard pieces, a hornpipe, although I don't think you'll hear the what we think of as the traditional hornpipe rhythms. This is actually a set of ground bass variations, where the ground is about as simple as it gets. Played with very slow notes, and out of which Aston creates an incredible variety of figurations and ornamentations, and it treats the keyboard very virtuosically. It is one of the earliest pieces that contains what we think of as very idiomatic music for the keyboard. No other instrument could play what has been written. So I hope that you enjoy this very effervescent set of variations. So sticking with that positively bucolic frame of reference, no concert about spring would be complete without music from the birds. This is a capriccio sopra il cuckoo by Johann Caspar Carol, an Austrian composer, court composer to kings, dukes, bishops, etc. in Vienna and Munich during the late 17th century. And I invite you to enjoy all of the various manifestations of the cuckoo and possibly other very possibly avian creatures in this incredibly amusing piece. And when you get to the end, I invite you to figure out what the rhythmic groupings are, because they do not anymore correspond to the meter. It's so much harder than it looks. I think that's probably one of the most stressful pieces I've ever learned to play. Let's stick around in 17th century Europe now for some Zweiling, a set of variations on Allein Gott in der Hörsaer, the Lutheran Gloria tune. This will show off Zweiling's incredible creativity in creating variations. You'll hear the melody first in the soprano voice, and then in a two-part version where there's counterpoint and the melody is very slightly ornamented, and then he'll bury the melody in the middle of the texture, and then finally a big finish with the melody clear, but very exciting. One of the things that is special about playing an instrument like this one, built originally in 1834 by a local builder from Newburyport, Massachusetts, named Joseph Alley, it is his only surviving instrument, which makes it very, very special, is that the unique sound and the technology of this particular organ makes it very well suited to playing music of 18th and early 19th century England. This instrument was very influenced by the English style of organ building, which was different from the French style, from the German style, the Italians, etc. And so now I want to play a voluntary by William Walland that was written around 1752. We know that Walland's music was present in the early United States. It was sold in places like Philadelphia. And so very likely organists in New England would have had access to his music. So this makes it totally appropriate. This will start with a slow movement on what we call the diapasons, which is such classic organ sound, and then we'll move to the cornet, a brilliant solo sound, almost creating a piece in the style of a Baroque violin concerto. We'll now fast forward a fair amount to perhaps the 1980s and a wonderful, wonderful piece by the American composer Emmylou Deemer, who is 93, I believe, and is still living and composing in Santa Barbara, California. And she has written an extensive amount of organ music, as well as music for all instrumentations. And I find her organ music to be extremely creative and exciting. This is a sort of riff on Psalm 75, and you will hear the jubilant praise type sound, using a lot of fun harmonies with a really strong rhythmic drive, in incredibly transparent and listenable structure that will lead to a big conclusion. If you're not familiar with Emmylou's music, I strongly encourage you to run and not walk to YouTube after this and check out her other music. It's incredibly varied. She takes influence from all styles of music, from traditional styles through contemporary and even 12-tone music, and does it in a completely original and very exciting way. And I cannot recommend her music enough. Now, an organ concert without Bach would probably be pretty silly, and while I like to push the envelope, I'm still going to do some Bach, but we'll do a deep cut. How's that? So this is a setting of the chorale traditionally sung before the minister gives the sermon, and set in an exciting trio format. So you won't hear the chorale tune clearly until the very end, when it will appear, and I will invite you to listen for that. But instead what you will hear is Bach's incredible sense of variety, taking the shape of the original melody and transforming it into rhythmic gestures and melodic lines and a dense and exciting counterpoint, a trio sonata for one person to play. So good luck to me. So now I would like to share a piece that is somewhat new to me, but I was so glad to have the opportunity to learn it, a piece called Variations on a Theme by Ellie, by the composer Trevor Weston, well known for his choral music and solo vocal music, which I, again, cannot stress enough how much I recommend you go and listen to his music. This piece is, again, a set of variations. I think I had variations on the brain when I was putting this program together. The theme is simple and singing, but what Weston does is transforms it using harmony and rhythm, especially using the interval of a fifth, which is open and gives a sense of harmony that is not typical within the Western tradition, and gives this piece a real sense of harmonic identity, distinguishing it from many other pieces in a very, very attractive way. And I think you will lose track of the melody. Certainly, as I was learning the piece, I would lose track of where the melody was in these variations, but I think that just shows the incredible ingenuity and creativity that Weston evinces in this particular piece. And he wrote it for the wedding of his sister in 2002, and I recognize that this is one of those life events that has been on hiatus for a lot of people, but still there is a beauty in that wonderful ritual. Well, it is what has always happened in every concert has now happened to us, which is that we have reached the end. And I want to thank you for joining me this evening. I hope that this music has excited your soul, charmed you, comforted you, done all of the wonderful things that music can do. And at this time, I would like to encourage you again to click on the donate link either in the More box or in the chat. And consider being generous in supporting the work that we do here at the First Religious Society, as well as the One Chelsea Fund, which again provides direct cash assistance to one of the hardest hit communities in the United States during this time. And I think it is a great show of mutual support that we can reach out to our neighbors and provide them with the things that they need. And they know what they need best, and often money is the easiest and most powerful thing that you can give somebody who needs a leg up. I'd like to close with some Mendelssohn. This instrument, as I said, was originally built in 1834, and so is probably one of the best suited instruments to play the music of Felix Mendelssohn, who wrote his 6 organ sonatas in 1844, 1845, and they were originally published in England with an English audience in mind, so an English-influenced organ should work very well. Number 4 is one of the more ambitious pieces. It is structured in more of a sonata than some of the other ones, with a exciting fast movement to start, a charming chorale in the middle, an intermezzo, or a song without words. Mendelssohn's favorite piano genre, here brought into the organ, and then finally a brilliant finale with a fugue, how appropriate for the organ, that will, I think, close out the evening in a very exciting way. I appreciate your patience as I deal with the many page turns that are not possible, and my little Frankenstein versions of all of these movements are a little bit cumbersome, but they allow me to use, to not have to worry about page turns. And I can't really expect anybody to turn pages for me during this time, since that would be very close and intimate proximity. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope that you've enjoyed this program, and I hope you've enjoyed the sound of this wonderful organ. I'd just like to take an opportunity to thank the staff here at FRS, especially Rob down handling the ones and the twos, and Diane for making the program, and the entire staff here for supporting the wonderful music that is possible, and for the congregation that saw the value in preserving and restoring this incredibly beautiful instrument in this wonderful acoustic. I hope that you have a very good night. I will once again ask you to be generous in making a contribution using the link in the video description, and please do stay well and stay connected. Thank you.